Welcome everyone to Choice Conversations, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your life, one choice at a time. I'm your host, Chris Stefanik. Let's do this. All right, on today's podcast, I've got a book review I'm doing of Making It All Work by David Allen. It's a companion book, if you will, to his best-selling book, Getting Things Done, which I've talked about many times on the show. And in fact, I had David Allen on the show a few months ago talking about getting things done. His productivity system, helps you to gain that stress-free productivity, right? Joining me on the book review today is a return guest, Jake Desyllas from The Voluntary Life. Jake is an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a podcaster himself. The Voluntary Life is a great podcast. If you haven't already given it a listen, please do so. But yeah, we're going to talk about what we liked about this book, what the reasons are to read it, why it's important. Can't you just read Getting Things Done? If not, why not? What value does it add? And so on. So we're going to dive deep into the philosophy that is presented in Making It All Work from David Allen. So check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. I thought this was a really interesting discussion for me, as it helped me to clarify my thoughts on getting things done, which is just a real integral part of my tool belt. It's an integral tool in that tool belt, right, that helps me to get through my day and unclog my mental plumbing, to use a David Allen metaphor. Before I bring you the book review, if you would like to have more choice conversations in your life, there is bonus content available on Patreon for contributors over there. So if you go to patreon.com/choiceconversations, that's a great way to help the show, and you can get that bonus content. So check it out. A link to that is in the show notes. All right, now here's the show. Jake, welcome back to the show.
Hi, great to be here.
It's been a long time. How's everything been going?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, very good. I'm a father now, and we're having a great time and enjoying life as a young family. Awesome.
Yeah, sometime I'm going to have you on or have Hannah on and discuss what life is like with as entrepreneurs and traveling with an infant. That sounds like it'd be a pretty interesting discussion.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we're thinking about a lot. We just did a podcast actually about minimalism and parenting, but also the travel and parenting thing. It's a big question. It's one that I've been thinking about a lot because we do intend to continue our travel lifestyle. So I've done some interviews about other people who travel with kids, and we've been thinking and talking a lot about how we want to do it. And we're planning to continue this lifestyle and see how it goes.
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, and I've got actually a show that's coming out while we're recording this. It has not yet been released, but I have it recorded, that I did with Mike and Lauren. I don't know if familiar with that.
Oh yeah. I had them on my show.
Oh, did you really? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's where I found out about them. I was trying to think, where did I find out about Mike and Lauren? And I was thinking it was Smart Passive Income, but maybe it was your show. So but we talked a little bit about that. So it's pretty interesting to see what their journey is, and they've got such a unique way that they're handling their perpetual travel,
Yeah, I mean, Mike and Lauren are a very interesting couple, and they're another example of extreme savers, people who have kind of done this approach to achieving some financial freedom through just basically really hardcore saving. And I wanted to talk to them because I was interested in the approach they took of going abroad to have their child. Their boy has got dual nationality. I think they went to Costa Rica. And that's something that we thought was a really, really cool thing to do. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for us because we went to Panama, and then the Zika virus came along, and we decided we didn't want to stick around for that. So we came back to the UK.
Good thinking. So yeah, that's a really interesting topic, and definitely one I'm going to explore again on the show. But today is something completely different. So today, as you know, the reason I invited you on to talk today was to do a book review of David Allen's book, Making It All Work. Now, this is an interesting discussion because, David Allen is, of course, known for getting things done. His productivity system, it's, I think the tagline, the subtitle is, something like the guide to stress-free productivity. And, it's a productivity system, has some elements of like time management in it and the like, but it's about being able to get things done while, and like it says, removing that stress so you can relax about it. And the interesting thing about this is Making It All Work is not like a standalone book. It's a book that it's definitely like a, once you've read Getting Things Done, if you're really jazzed about it and into productivity systems like you and I are, here's some more thoughts I have on that topic, right? So, I guess, what was your experience like when you read Making It All Work?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a book that was a follow-on to the success of Getting Things Done. He wrote Getting Things Done quite a long time ago, I think sometime in the early 2000s. And I think that Making It All Work came out in about 2010 or around then. Mm. And I get the impression this is a book definitely for GTD fans as a sort of, for people who wanted more content, basically. And I'm sure that his publishers said, you've got to get more books out because there's a massive demand for GTD stuff. And I guess for a lot of people like me who got really interested in this idea and this approach, and I got a lot of value out of the Getting Things Done technique or method or approach. And a lot of people read that first book and said, well, this is good, but there's so much to take in. There's so many aspects to this system, and there's a lot of philosophical sides to it as well. And I got the sense, my experience of the Making It All Work book is that it was less practical, less about the sort of getting control of your day-to-day life, and more about how to fit productivity systems and habits and a kind of ethos about getting things done into your life. And in particular, the thing that I really noticed about it is it's much more focused on finding purpose and gaining perspective and the whole sort of context of goal setting and understanding where you're going with your life. And that was in Getting Things Done as well. But I think because it started off very much as a, here's how to control your email and here's how to get control of all the junk on your desk, because it started off very much in those practical terms, he downplayed that purpose side of the GTD book, whereas this book is much more about finding purpose, I think.
Right. Yeah, to me, when I was looking at it, I felt like there was so much more of the philosophy of getting things done.
Yes.
And like you said, much less of like the practical, actionable kind of things that were, so much of that, of getting things done was dedicated to that. And of course, that's the area where people are struggling the most. And you're not going to even have the time to think about the philosophy of it if you're drowning in email and it's just, your inbox has thousands of emails in it and you're just putting out fires all day long, right? Mm. So, that kind of makes sense to go through and, okay, we've got to get you to the point where you've got your inbox under control and you have a system for capturing and organizing this stuff. So I understand and why it was done that way. And I think it makes kind of sense the way that he did it this way. And it's funny, you said, there was a lot of fans out there of Getting Things Done that were wanting more content, and I'm sure his publisher is like, come on, you need to write, there's demand for this. You need to come up with another book. And he even talks about that in Making It All Work, how people would ask him, okay, I read Getting Things Done. I love it. Now what do I read?
Right.
And he would tell them, read Getting Things Done again. Cause he's like, there's so much to take in. And, each time you read it, you come away with, something you didn't get the first time because, now that once you have some experience with it, it means something different to you when you read it again,
Yeah.
And that was kind of a funny thing. And, he told me, I interviewed him a couple months ago and, he said that he had someone tell him that they read it 10 times and still got value out of it at the 10th time, so it's one of those kind of things because like you said, there is just so much going on in there and it's impossible to fully grasp it all the first time.
I think that's a legitimate criticism of Getting Things Done. And I know that a lot of people, when they first read that book, they sort of find it to be just overwhelmingly comprehensive. There's so much in there. And a lot of people, I think, get the impression that there's so many different habits that are discussed and different ways of handling things that I think a lot of people come away with the feeling that, wow, there's so much effort involved in implementing this, massive system. I don't really know if it's even going to be worth it for me to go through all of the adopting work that I'm going to need to do to take on all these different habits and stuff. And like you said, there's an awful lot in that book. And one of the things I think that the Making It All Work book did is it actually stepped away from that a bit. And I think he was trying to give more of a sense of what is the point of all of this, and how is this going to be integrated into your life, and how does this reflect your goals and dreams, and how can you use this in life? And particularly because he talks not just about work, but he talks a lot about your personal life in Making It All Work. The idea that this isn't just about clearing your desk at work. This is about making sure that you achieve the dreams that you have for your personal life, your relationship, for your family, for the things that you want to do, the projects outside of making money, basically. So I think that's kind of, I got the sense that this book is, if the use of this book is to take a step back a bit from all of these specific habits of how to, deal with your inbox and stuff, and more think in terms of what the point of all of this is, so that you get a sense of how it can help you to achieve your dreams.
Right. Yeah. And even beyond just sitting back and getting like the high level grasp of how things are, so that you can, have that work-life balance, right? And live a more balanced life, right? And not be rocking it at your day job or your entrepreneurial adventures, but while leaving your family, your family's crumbling apart, that sort of thing. But he even, beyond that, just like getting that big picture, he even spent some time in this talking about how getting things done is a productivity system that's designed for basically everything you do. And, not just like when at your day job or your business. And, he says, his definition of work is anything you want to get done.
Yeah.
So this includes, of course, the obvious stuff like, making out, going through your project planning and all those kind of things, and billing customers and whatnot. But also, laying on the beach is something, and taking your child to hockey practice, and it's funny. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who's really into productivity. Actually, him. It's Philip Frey. You've been on a guest on his show, and he's a productivity geek as well. He's really into this stuff. And I was saying something about like how many hours a day I'm productive. And it was like some really high number, like, I don't know, like 12, 14 hours or something like that. And he was like blown away by that. And I'm like, well, first of all, we should probably define what I mean by being productive because it may not be the same thing that it means to you. So for me, if, one of the things I want to have in my life is, spending time with my family. So if I'm just like spending time with my family, I consider that being productive because I'm getting something done I wanted to get done. What else I want to have in my life is leisure and entertainment. So I'm like, if you include like leisure and entertainment in your list of things that you're wanting to get done, you could be productive like just about, every waking moment of the day. Even your sleeping moments, you're getting something done, because you need that to recharge your batteries, right? So, and I had to sit there and I had to really think about it after having that conversation with Philip. I was like, okay, I got to figure out like what to me is not being productive. Because clearly like everything I do shouldn't be classified as being productive, right?
Yeah.
And I really found that, it was down to just a handful of things, and that I really was, for the most part, almost every waking hour being productive. And it was social media. And I had to like even put like an asterisk next to that, which was still probably at least half or more of the time I spent on social media was being productive, because I was doing things like promoting my podcast. But it was the stuff like allowing social media to suck you into other areas. You go on Facebook to promote your podcast, and then, their algorithms are so good at finding stuff that is tantalizing to you and putting that right at the top of your page, right? So you come in and you're like, oh, wait, that looks interesting. And you click on that, and then an hour later, you're like shit, how did that happen? So I'm like, okay, when I'm on social media and I'm doing stuff that I'm not supposed to be focused on, or that are not focused on, like my podcast and things like that, or building relationships with my audience, then that is not being productive. And then the other thing I said was like, well, if I'm watching TV, that's not being productive either. Even though entertainment is one of my goals, I find it that there are more enriching, better forms of entertainment. Like I look at TV as just like kind of like junk food entertainment, where there are other ones that I would prefer to spend more doing, like, like reading books or, playing games with my family or, dancing or things like this. There are other ways to entertain myself. But even there, I had to like put an asterisk next to watching TV where I'm like, if I'm snuggling on the couch with my wife watching TV, that's a really great moment. That's a great way to spend an evening. And it's getting more done than just the entertainment, right? It's also that aspect of spending quality time with the one you love and getting affection and things like that. It was killing more than just the entertainment need, right? Or killing more than one bird with that stone, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. At any rate, I was looking at it and it's like, when you put it that way, a lot of the things you do in your life can be classified as being productive. And then it's just a matter of setting priorities so that you're like, oh, well, I'm being productive sitting here, reading a book. I'm being productive doing this or, spending time laying on the beach. But, meanwhile, if you're not having your priorities set, which is other stuff that he talks about in the book, then there's all these other areas are going to drop off because you're getting that leisure goal met really well, or you're getting that entertainment goal met really well. And meanwhile, these other goals that you have might not be being addressed.
Wow, there's just a lot that you've said there that I think is there's some really important subjects there. And I know exactly where you're coming from about being productive outside of work. I think it's so important what you've said about that, because here's a surefire way to make yourself feel bad in life is to set productivity goals to do with all of your, money making or work related jobs. Set yourself a bunch of those goals and then get to the end of the day and feel like, A, I didn't meet all of those goals, and B, I haven't spent any time with the people I love. And, I just feel like this day I haven't really got anything done I wanted to get done. And it's such a difference if you treat your life as not just work and then the other stuff that you do when you're too tired to work, which is frankly the way that I treated my life for a long time. Work was basically the focus, and everything else was, stuff I would allow myself to do when I was too tired to be doing productive stuff on my business. But when you actually look at your relationships and your personal life and your other aspirations in life and treat them as projects where you have goals and the things that you want to do the kind of life that you want to live, and you include those goals in your own planning of what you're trying to achieve with your day or your week or your month or your year or your life, then you not only do you actually give those other aspects of your life the attention that they deserve, but you can feel good about doing the things that you want to do because you are actually achieving the goals that you have in life. And it's a weird kind of thing, but I had to actually I had to give myself permission to make goals to do with non-money generating work related activities. And for that to be something that, this is a productive use of my time because I really want to organize an amazing weekend away with my wife, for example, or whatever the particular goal is. And that is a project that if I'm spending time working on that to make that happen, that is a productive use of my time because that's what I want my life to be about, is making that kind of thing happen. And so that's so important. And it's something that I suffered from for a very long time, was considering productivity in terms of purely work or money related sort of activity, and everything else was the reward that I might allow myself if I got enough done at work, if you see what I mean. And it makes a huge difference to view. This is one of the key aspects that I've taken from getting things done, is to look at all the different areas of responsibility in your life, not just your work or job related ones or business related ones, but also your health, your relationship, and travel, and all of these other aspects of life that are not about your job. And so I completely, I think it's great what you say about, being productive on those other things. I do think there is a difference between just doing stuff that you enjoy and being productive, even outside work, if you see what I mean. Like, I understand what you're saying when you're saying, well, if I look at my day, I'm kind of productive in almost everything except maybe social media and TV and stuff. And I think that's true. But the other thing is that I think there's something I find very helpful about trying to think about the kind of person I want to be and the life that I want to live and the things that I want to do and doing those things. And sometimes, there are lots of things that can be fun, but they're so easy to do that they take you away from the kind of life that you want to live. I mean, social media you mentioned is one of them, right? It can be fun. There's loads of interesting stuff. And before you know it, as you say, you spent an hour on Facebook and you don't even really know what you were doing. You were just looking at links and following another link to another link or another post, scrolling down the feed. And the same is true with TV. It can be fun, but you can also life can just kind of go by while it's happening. So I think it's the real value I find in trying to be conscious about what I want from life is that it helps me to determine what the most fulfilling thing is going to be to try and do with my time, including the stuff outside of money generation and work, but in all aspects of life.
Right. Yeah, and I think a thing that helps actually is one of the coaching questions that I believe your wife uses for her clients. And, so I believe I heard this on, from her podcast and her blog, Becoming Who You Are. And the question was, if you spent every day like you spent today, how would your life look 10 years from now? And the purpose of it is, one, so that you do have some eye on the future, but also it's not like looking at the future with complete disregard for today, like living for tomorrow, but not for the moment. Because who wants to spend the next 10 years with your nose to the grindstone on some big project or something like that, some big goals you have set out there, and your focus is completely on that, but you didn't enjoy that time until then. And what happens if 9 years from now you get hit in a car wreck and die? You just spent like 9 years and you never even got to the goal and you didn't enjoy it the way there. You were it was always focused on the future. You want that balance of enjoying the moment while also moving towards goals that are going to make tomorrow better than today, and so that's one way you can kind of evaluate your day. Was I productive today? Is this something that, when I look back 10 years from now, am I going to say, Chris, when you would spend a few hours a week snuggling on the couch with your wife watching TV, are you going to regret that? And I'm pretty certain that I'm not going to regret that, Now, if it was like 2 or 3 hours a night doing that, I probably would say, yeah, you know what? I didn't need to spend 3 hours a night snuggling on the couch with my wife to get that need scratched for entertainment and for affection. You know what I mean? I could have did that in, a few hours a week rather than a few hours a night. And meanwhile, all these other things fell to the wayside. So you can start to classify things as, almost anything you do. I mean, you want to think about, okay, there are some things that are definitely like junk food activities to make the analogy, and minimizing those for sure. You don't want to like have this philosophy give you the permission slip to start using your time poorly, But once you adapt this philosophy and you've removed the junk food items, or minimize them at least, the junk food activities from your life, like social media. The next thing after that is, okay, what are my priorities and balance? So that it doesn't, because then it's like, okay, well, half my friends who aren't into productivity at all are being productive as hell, just sitting back and playing video games because they're getting that entertainment need met, right? And it's like, no, you then have to, at some point, you filled your energy. I guess I'm thinking of analogies while I'm talking to you about it, and one that just occurred to me is you come almost like having a bucket. You have buckets. Your needs are different buckets. Like you've got your entertainment bucket, and once you fill it to the top, there's really not any more value. I mean, there is some value, but for the most part, if you keep filling it after it's to the top, it just spills over the side. And at that point, you're better off trying to fill another bucket. And so that's kind of it. You need to look and say, okay, at what point have I put enough into this one bucket, and it's time to now make sure that other buckets aren't getting too empty, right? Which is just another way of saying balance, right?
Yeah. And I think there's also an opportunity, there's an opportunity to really do entertainment in the most awesome way that you can, as opposed to, just watching whatever's on TV, right? I mean, I don't think that I don't think it's a fun life to say, I will deny myself all TV so that I can focus on higher things in life. I think there are some TV programs that are great and really interesting and worth watching.
Sure.
And movies that are great and worth watching. But there's a big difference between deciding, okay, what are the shows that I really want to watch? And I'm going to watch those maybe with my partner, or maybe we're just going to get a bunch of friends together and we're all going to watch it together and actually make an event out of it and have fun with it. There's a difference between doing that and just being so dog tired that you just turn on the TV and watch whatever's on. I mean, that's one of the reasons I don't have a TV, because I know that I grew up with TV, and it was always there in the background when I was a kid as a kind of child entertainment thing. That's the way it was used. And I know that means I'm very susceptible if I'm tired to just sitting in front of the TV and watching it. So I don't have a TV. So I choose the shows to download and watch, because that helps me to actually try and make entertainment more fulfilling, because I'm actually making a conscious choice about it.
Right. Yeah. And another thing you said there too was you like to, if you're going to make a choice to watch a show, a great way to do it is to have friends over and have like an event, or, watch, this is something that I can watch with my wife. And, based on what I've heard about it, I think we'll have some pretty stimulating conversations after the fact.
Yeah.
So it's a way you can select entertainment options that check off multiple boxes, so you're not just getting entertained, you're also scratching that itch for community in the social aspects of your life, because we all have a need for community. That's like in our biology to, we're tribal animals, right? And so you can look out there finding these high quality options for entertainment and leisure activities that check more than one box. Maybe you have some leisure activities that are also really good for, your health. Things like, I find, and some people probably wouldn't call this leisure activity, but I find that doing some gentle yoga, maybe not the ones where you're sweating and you're doing all, these crazy, like almost calisthenic yoga things, but the ones where more just, kind of relaxing and stretching and breathing exercises and the like. I find that to be very much a leisure thing. At the same time, that's really great for your health and your mobility and things of that nature. So, there are different things you can do, and if you could do that with a friend or with your family and things like that, then you're getting some family time in there. You're getting some community. There are ways to kill multiple birds with that one stone, and that's one of the best ways to to really rock out doing that. To be really mindful of it rather than just the TV's on, let's just sit down and watch it, just whatever's the first thing that comes up. And another way to do that as well, like you had said, is finding a really high quality show, rather than just kind of whatever happens to come on. And I was reading a book. It's actually called How to Read a Book.
Oh, I know that book. It's a brilliant book.
Right. And one of the things he says to do in there is he says, way too many people read every book that they pick up and finish it. He said, you should never finish every book you pick up. He said, if you pick up a book, cause he's like, I get, we all have read books and we're like, 10 pages in, 50 pages in are like, eh. And if that's your reaction after, you've given it 20, 50 pages, don't finish reading it. It's like, do not finish reading it. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, there's so many great books right now. If all the authors in the world right now just died of a freak virus, there is so much existing out there without a single bit of content being created going forward that I'd never be able to read all the interesting books that, the books that would be interesting to me, that would be valuable to me. I'd never be able to read them all in my lifetime. So if there's a book and I'm reading it and I'm 50 pages into a 400-page book and I'm just not feeling it, I should not continue reading that. And I don't know, something in my psychology, whenever I would start a book or almost, anything in life, it was one of those things when you start something, you have to finish it. And I'm not sure where that came from. I probably should sit down and explore that at some point, meditate on that for a little bit. But, when I'd start something, I would really struggle to like put that down. I read that and I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense. And then even after reading it and thinking about it and getting like 50 pages into a book, and I'm like, man, this is the time when I should just put this book down. It was really hard for me to do that, but I've started doing that just recently, even though I read that book a long time ago. And I'm like, wow, this is just such a better use of my time. Such a better use, It's like, why did I spend so much time in the past finishing books, or even worse, finishing a series of books? I read the first book. It'd be like the series would be like a 6-book series. Read the first book and be like, it was okay. But, you started it, you got to finish it. You want to see where it goes next. And I'm like, wow, that, think how many other great books I missed out on because I was doing that. And I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I think I've broken myself of that, and I've had some success in the last few months several times putting something down after I started it and I wasn't that into it. And, that's just another thing to think about when you, instead of just living life, start thinking about it. And that's, that's one of the principles that David Allen keeps talking about here. And there's so many gains when you think about what you're thinking about, there's a lot of gains that can be had. So, he gives the expression, there's a quote from the book I wrote down. It says, if you don't pay attention to what has your attention, it will take more attention than it deserves. Mm. And in making it all work, he gives this analogy of the telephone ringing. And he says, if the telephone's ringing, this is like a thought in your head, right? And if you don't answer it and the person just keeps calling back, you don't answer and they just keep calling back. So this is like, you're not giving the appropriate attention. The appropriate attention would be to just answer the phone and either process it on the spot or say, you know what, now's not really a good time. How about I call you back tomorrow or something like that, right? That's the appropriate amount of attention. You hang up the phone, then it stops ringing, and you can now put your attention on other things. Where if you just let it keep ringing, it's bugging you and distracting you and keeping you from putting your full focus on whatever it is you're trying to do at that moment. And he said that's how most people live their life. That's probably, how I was living my life before I discovered getting things done, is you have all these thoughts coming in your head and you don't have a system for managing them, and you're not putting attention on them and thinking about them. And so, there's a lot of magic that can happen when you do start thinking about what you're thinking about, and finding a way to get to process that, give it the appropriate amount of attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, really getting things done is all about self-mastery. It's supposedly it's about dealing with a full in-tray and loads of emails in your inbox and everything, but really it's about self-mastery. It's about working out how to consciously manage yourself so that you are able to deal with all of these challenges that come into your life and decide on appropriately how to respond to them. And so that's what I think is quite deep about it, that it's not really about filing systems. It's about self-mastery. Mm.
Right. Yeah, he actually used this term, and I don't remember this in Getting Things Done. So maybe he said it, but he brought a lot more attention to it in making it all work. Was he talked about getting things done as a way to build mental intelligence. So, there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence, and you hear that all the time. And of course, emotional intelligence is an important thing. It makes a lot of sense, and it's building your quote unquote emotional intelligence can really help you to have improvements in your life. If you're somebody with a low emotional IQ, there's going to be a lot of problems that you have in your life. Your emotions are kind of run your life, right? But he said, there's also mental intelligence. It's kind of a funny term, right? But he said this is basically, it's being skilled at thinking. It's unclogging your mental plumbing, is how he put it. And, Alan, he makes the case that mental intelligence is actually more important than emotional intelligence, because your emotions are driven more by your thoughts than it is the other way around. Your emotions are driving your thoughts, right? So, and I thought that was interesting. I had to think about that for a little bit, and I'm like, is that really true? Is your emotions driving your thoughts, or are thoughts driving your emotions? And I kind of think that it is probably true. It's that way. If you're sitting there, say you're in the middle of a project, and my daughter runs up to me and she's like, "Oh, Daddy, I wanted to show you this. Check out this awesome, picture I drew." And if my thought is, "Oh, yeah, that's really sweet. She cares. She wants to share this with me." I'll stop what I'm doing and go check that out, right? There's a whole different emotion generated than if my thought is, "Wow, she is being so disrespectful. Does not she see that I'm busy doing something right now?" The emotion that comes out of that is completely different than the other one.
Yeah.
And so, it has nothing to do with like the activity itself. You can have wildly different emotions from the same stimulus. My daughter came up and wanted to show me a picture, and depending on what my thought is, can have wildly different emotions. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and to take that example with your daughter, the other way of looking at it is this: if you are competent at handling the sort of constant flow of opportunities and pressures and changes that life brings to you, then when your daughter approaches you with a picture, it's not going to be stressful for you because, even if there's a lot going on, you're able to understand the situation that you're in and to be in control of life's pressures, right? But if you're not in control of life's pressures and you're so stressed out, you're not going to be in a good position to respond positively when your daughter comes to you with a picture. And so in a way, you give yourself, by having the competence of dealing with this mental intelligence, to use that term, then you give yourself a better foundation to be able to respond to stuff because you're not stressed out.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. You're right. When you're putting out fires all day and new things are coming at you, it's just like throwing kindling on the fire, right? Or throwing a fuel on the fire.
Yeah, and I think that the really key point about getting things done that really made an impression upon me is there's always new things coming at you. That's the whole point, is that it's not like you're going to clear your desk and then everything's sorted. It's a way of dealing with the fact that you're never going to get to the end of new things coming at you. There's always new things coming at you. So you need that system so that rather than this being a surprise, oh my God, something new showed up. That's actually the norm. That's what we should expect. So that in that sense, when your daughter shows up with a picture, it's not, oh my God, somebody's shown up which I didn't expect and is giving me something that I didn't expect to get. It's more that actually that's life. That is the way that life works, that things you didn't expect show up. So the way that we have to handle it is to have a system to deal with a constant flow of stuff that you didn't anticipate receiving.
Sure. Yeah. And you're right. And it's so great for that as well, and it allows you just so quickly to take those thoughts take those actions as they come in, put them into a trusted system, and then you don't have to worry about them. It's one of the things that David mentions in the book is, he's like, how much time do you spend worrying about things that are in your calendar? Or how much time do you spend worrying about running out of gas? And he says, probably not very much time because you have a trusted system in place to handle those things right now. So the key to being stress-free in life is finding a trusted system for managing all this stuff. And then that magic that you don't have to spend any time worrying about running out of gas because you have a trusted system. Now you've got a fuel meter, you have a gas gauge for all the different areas in your life, right? And now all of a sudden you can just sit back and you don't have to worry about it unless that, when that gauge starts hitting into the red, you're going to know it right away because you have a trusted system to handle that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I guess, we've talked about a lot of the philosophy that's presented in both books and how, we goes a little deeper into it and making it all work. You read Getting Things Done. You went back, you read Making It All Work. Did it seem like it was worth it to go back and read it, knowing that it didn't necessarily present anything different, just kind of bringing more focus to the philosophy side of it, but the philosophy was still there in the first one, right? So what were your thoughts? Did you get a lot of value from reading Getting Things Done? Or I'm sorry, Making It All Work, rather.
Yeah, I think my approach has been to consume. When I get really passionate and interested in something, I will just consume like 10 books on this subject. And I did that with productivity systems. I read everything that I could around productivity. Well, for years, I read everything that I could around productivity systems. And when I discovered getting things done, I read everything I could about that particular system as well. And some of those books, like you were saying before, some of those books I just skimmed through and decided that there was nothing useful in it, or stopped reading halfway through. And others I read more intensely. This is definitely one that I read more intensely. And if I remember correctly, the things that I took away from this one that I found really helpful were that as I said before, I got a lot more focus on finding perspective in life and looking at your purpose and the different, as he calls them, horizons of focus for your life, so that you can think not just about your current projects, but also about where you're going and what your purpose in life is, which I think is such a massive, huge question to address. You know, what do you want the purpose of your life to be? What do you want to be? What do you want your life to be about? So that when you're 80 years old, you can look back on it and think, did I live the kind of life that I wanted to live? Was I the kind of person that I wanted to be? So I think that's such a important question, and he tackles that in this book, and he provides actual sort of tangible ways of thinking about this, because it's, in a way, it's an overwhelming question. It's so big that it's kind of overwhelming, but he provides some really useful ways of thinking about it, and some tools as well. I mean, this book does contain tools too.
Sure.
I think I started using vision boards after reading this book. That was something that I found helpful as a way of thinking about vision and purpose in life. So that's something that I took away from it. He also talks in this book about natural project planning and different methods of project planning. And that I found very helpful. And I've definitely used that technique for my project planning since then. So I took away a lot of those things from this book. And so, yeah, in answer to your question, I got value out of it. But it's definitely a book for people who are really wanting to wade into the whole GTD world and kind of get fully immersed in it. So I would say probably your starter book is Getting Things Done, and this is definitely if you want to get more content to sort of get a deeper picture, then this book can be helpful in that respect.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that there's no point in reading Making It All Work until you've read Getting Things Done. But not only just that, you need to have read Getting Things Done and then started to implement it and have some practical experience with it before you read Making It All Work. Then, at least in my opinion, I think that's where it'll mean more to you if you've gotten your hands dirty. So for me, actually, I had read Getting Things Done, started implementing it. A few months later, read it again, because that's one of the things he always says to do. And, continued that I picked up new things, made some tweaks, whatever. And then a few months after that, or somewhere in there, and actually, there was recordings of workshops that were, I think, on YouTube at the time, where he basically covered all the Getting Things Done material, and it was David Allen giving a workshop, right? And I listened to that, and then each time you hear the material, it was all the same material, just presented a different way, the workshops, right? And there was just more subtleties you'd pick up on, and more, I would find little tweaks to my system. And then a couple of years went by, and now I just recently read, Making It All Work. And again, I found some things that I wasn't using the system as effectively as I could. There were some tweaks that I made that have really made a huge difference. It's like each time I expose myself to the material, I find better ways to use it. I find like he would talk about how somebody would be, for lack of a better term, they'd be failing at implementing Getting Things Done. And he gave an example in Making It All Work, and I was like, oh my God, that's happening to me. I'm totally doing that. And like one example was, I remember I didn't used to do weekly reviews, and after going back and revisiting the material a while back, I was like, I really do need to start doing weekly reviews, and that made a big difference, right? And but even still, even after I've been working on this for years and having read the book multiple times, listened to the workshops, when I read Making It All Work, I found some more tweaks that really improved the way I implemented it, right? So it's been really valuable to me as somebody who's really into productivity, really into getting things done specifically, and has seen, a lot of value, has seen my mental intelligence rise dramatically by having this system for managing life, for managing my thoughts, for managing my attention. And in addition to that, like you said, there are some tools in there. There's some, I did like that, the natural project management, process, that's something that I took notes on that. I was taking notes the whole time when I was reading this book, and that was one I specifically took some notes on, and that was really, seemed really valuable. I'm going to use that going forward, and I'm going to have to test that out for sure. And he gives a lot of also examples of stuff that he learned when he's meeting with his clients, interesting things that ways his clients have implemented it, contexts they've come up with. So, for those who maybe are getting things done, newbies, or haven't read the book but you're thinking about it, a context would be something like, at work or at the office, or meeting with my boss, or running errands, and you can label certain tasks with these contexts. So that, if you have like for me, I have mowing the yard as, on my list of recurring tasks, and it's got the context of at home. So, if I'm at the doctor's office and I'm waiting for my, to be seen by the doctor, and I'm checking my getting things done system to see, well, what can I do to kill some time here? I don't even want to bother seeing mowing the yard because I can't do anything with it if I'm not in that context of being at home. Well, that's something that's in getting things done. I'm not saying that's something new, but he gives examples of stuff like different contexts that his clients had come up with that he had found interesting. And he presented those in Making It All Work. And like one of them was brain dead. And he's like, here are tasks I can do that they need to get done eventually, but I can do them when I'm brain dead. And it reminded me of what you were talking about earlier. Before you had getting things done, you would just you would work, and then until you were less like completely gassed, and then at that point you would go do other things. Rather than, we all know that that's going to happen at some point, but let's handle it in a way, let's plan for it and handle it in a way intelligently, and instead of having it just happen to us, and your results are going to be a lot higher if you're planning for that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool, and he had stuff like, the someday maybe list, which I guess that's another, even someday maybe is just another context. It's a context that has to do with time instead of location, right? So, you can have the context of this needs to be done right now, or this needs to be done in the next week or two, or I might want to do this someday, right? But he said some of his clients had divided someday maybe up into sublists, subsets. So movies I might like to see someday, books I might like to read someday, places I might like to go, etc. So there's all of these implementations, experiences that he gained looking at what his clients have used, that are little tips and tricks that have worked for some people, may not work for you, but they might work for you. And it was good to see those, and to get me thinking about, would that work for me? And also, okay, maybe that specific one wouldn't work for me, but what are some of the contexts that really would work for me that I hadn't thought about before? A way to just make the system even more efficient. And all of those things, bringing that focus back to my productivity system, getting things done, bringing that focus back to how my thoughts are going, how to my mental intelligence, to what I'm putting attention on, was really valuable to me. So, I really found a lot of value in reading this book, even though it wasn't really presenting anything that I didn't already have from getting things done,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's all really helpful stuff for people who are interested in pursuing this. And I would offer a slightly different perspective as well in terms of whether or not you can read this before you read Getting Things Done. I think ultimately there's so much in Getting Things Done as a system and so many ideas in there that it takes time, or at least it took me time to adopt a lot of these ideas. It's not necessarily something that you're going to read through once and then bang, the next day suddenly you're making all of these context lists and doing weekly reviews, and you've got it all up and running. It's, to me, it was a slow, lumbering takeoff, involving a lot of bouncing along the runway, and so I would, bearing that in mind, the way it worked for me was I just really immersed myself in this whole productivity world. I read as much as I could. I thought about it a lot, and most of all, I stole all these ideas and I made them my own. And that's what you need to do, is just take this book. Don't try and do David Allen's system. Make your own system and steal all his ideas and switch them around if you think they work slightly better in your own life than the way that he put them. If you find one aspect of it isn't working for you, then dump it and use the bits that work for you. And in that way, take the entire thing apart and put it back together again in a way that works for you. And when you do that, you'll own that system because it'll be yours, rather than trying to join the David Allen way, which is somebody else's way of doing things. So in that respect, I find that, at least this is the way it works for me. I just like to immerse myself in this stuff, rip it all apart and put it all back together in my own way. And that way I know how the system works, and I know that it works in a way that works for me. And if you do it like that, you can read this book and you might go back to it again afterwards, or you can start with getting things done. Doesn't matter. Just do it your way, but try and take it apart and put it back together again in your own mind, so that when you're implementing these things, it's not just like a chore that you're doing because a book said so, but rather it's something that you have really stolen for yourself. You've taken these ideas and you've put them into your own life, and now you own them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, and you have your own podcast, right? And you dive into these subjects, getting things done, productivity, and book reviews and all that pretty extensively. And you have a lot of really valuable things to say on this topic. If my listeners would like to learn more about you and the work you're doing, what would be the best way for that to happen?
Thanks. Yeah, they can go to thevoluntarylife.com, and that's where you'll find the podcast. You can subscribe there. And also on the right-hand side of the page, there's a list of subject tags, a tag cloud, and you'll see that GTD is in that tag cloud. And so if you click on that, you'll see just the posts that are related to productivity. And so I've done quite a few episodes on getting things done and productivity in general. But thevoluntarylife.com is where to find it.
Awesome. Great. All right, Jake. Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Chris. It was fun.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. So grateful to have Jake come on and discuss that book with me, and grateful to David Allen for writing it. And getting things done has been huge contributor in my life. Like I said, it's definitely one of the top tools in my tool belt, if not the top tool in my tool belt. And Getting Things Done itself is one of my top 5 books. And if you like getting things done, like Jake said, I think it's worth it to really dive into it and then read Making It All Work to get you even more acquainted with the material, to dive more into the subtleties of it, and to get more in the philosophy, like we said today. So, Getting Things Done is definitely one of my top 5 books, top 5 most influential books, top 5 books I would recommend to others, that sort of thing. If you enjoyed this show, do me a favor and share it. Go to social media, tweet it out, that sort of thing. Go to iTunes, leave a rating, subscribe, leave a review, all that sort of thing. I would really, really appreciate that. All right. Have a great day. Or not. The choice is yours.